Hello, Dr. Michael.
Hi, Dr. Nancy.
Um, so first of all, I want to explain to people that the reason why this topic is important is obviously getting to the root cause is always better than just throwing whatever at a problem and just treating the symptoms, right?
Mm,
Because if you're treating the symptoms, you're not really fixing anything. All you're doing is just prolonging the problem. And especially with medications, they all have side effects of one sort or another. So you could be creating a new problem.
right. Yeah, and that's, the common theme it seems like is we're just focusing on the complaint rather than looking at the source of that complaint. So I think that entails a lot more effort and energy in the system, and generally it's hard to do. So that's why, many people don't have the insight to where some of the root causes are coming from, which is, uh, important when people don't want to be sick or in pain or whatever's going on anymore.
And I think we just live our world these days is we want that quick fix, like right now, as you know, I'm doing a juice fast. I've tried other methods to try lose weight. I lose weight and then I gain back more. It's like this never ending cycle. And, like for me, it was like, okay, I just need to clean my body out. I need to reset a few things. So I decided to do a juice fast. But, like anything can become a band-aid, like even
Yeah.
supplements, right? Like
Right.
if you're taking, let's say, this is a common one I see for sleep, right? People say, oh, I'm having problems sleeping. Oh, I'll take magnesium and it may be they have a magnesium deficiency, but it also might be that they have another more serious underlying problem. And, when you're just again throwing a supplement at it, that's not necessarily going to fix
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, and it goes along, we have that mentality that this is the quote unquote pills for problems sort of. You got a problem, I got a pill for that. And whether it even goes to, the functional medicine world of, taking 100 different supplements because we're just adding those in, some things may be helpful, but like you said, yeah, if you have a true magnesium deficiency or something, we're gonna try to boost and replace that. But the mentality of just taking something that's going to cure you is not necessarily the healthiest approach to figuring out why do you have this problem, asking yourself the question, the introspection, the other, avenues that affect your life other than something that goes in as a pill or a supplement or something else. So that's, the general mentality first of all is pervasive in our healthcare system, but then that's pushed on to patients and other people, then we believe that mentality that, yeah, this is the way to treat things. I just need to take something for something. And looking at the root cause, as this is entitled, is missed often and requires effort and requires more, self-awareness and a holistic picture of your health and your body. It's not just, one solution.
Yeah, and the other thing is I think that people need to realize is medicine or healthcare itself is not one size fits all, right? So it goes back to like magnesium may work for somebody, but not for someone else. And it becomes this endless thing. Here, let's try this. What's the solution of the week, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I see this in practice. I could have 10 different people come in with low back pain, and the cause could be 10 different things.
Right.
And it's I try to educate people about cause and effect, but again, we're just living this society where they're just so used to putting on the TV and seeing take this drug for rheumatoid arthritis, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a drug for everything,
Yeah.
but you got to read the label and see the consequences and potential side effects too.
Of course. Yeah. And just like you mentioned, when someone says their back hurts, there isn't a one size fits all. And I'm sure you see that. And sometimes people get into that approach. And if you're doing something and it's not working, then you probably aren't getting at the cause. And you might be palliating it, meaning like, oh, you put ice on it, feels better. Get a massage, you feel better. But if it keeps coming back and you're in this cycle, then you're not getting to the root cause, because you still have that complaint, or you still have the sensation, or you wind up back to the circle. Now, there's patterns that we have and different lessons to be learned. I think when we go through those, it's not wrong, but they help us to clue in that maybe there's a different aspect of the issue that we're not getting to.
Yeah, and it's interesting because according to this 2019 survey, Spain ranked #1 for
Oh,
world health,
yeah,
right? Of course, 37% of the people walk to work, right?
yeah,
Versus 6% in the US. The US, according to the survey, is ranked 35th in the world.
right,
We spend so much money on healthcare and
right,
we're ranked 35th. And
yeah,
the countries that are ahead of us are Spain, Italy, Iceland, Japan, Switzerland, Sweden, Australia, just to name a few. And what do all those countries have in common? They're not sitting on their butt all day long.
yeah. Yeah, that's for the United States being, probably the top of the list for healthcare expenditures, and still not that high, on the 30th, 34 percentile for the actual healthiest countries where people can benefit from, a healthcare system that actually serves them, which is, we in general, like you've heard many times, we have a sick care system, not a healthcare system, and it's really just keeping people in the loop, and we just barely treat you when you're sick, but we never teach you how to be healthy, and our lifestyle isn't conducive to that, and so our general culture of working hard, overworking, overstressing, quick fast food, cheap food, and those things add up to a system that isn't serving us. And so that's where, having a redo helps, or a different perspective, because, it's only, a crazy person just keep, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And it's not going to happen
Yeah.
uh, for us here. So,
Right, and Italy being #2, right? We know that GMOs are banned in Italy.
yeah.
And we know, I mean, I think I've never been to Italy, but everything I've read, they take their time and they enjoy their food. And,
Mm,
it's like an event, like,
mhm.
going out for dinner, they could spend 2 hours eating dinner where, we're just like shoveling our food in our mouth, trying to
Yeah.
get to the next activity.
Yeah, there's for sure, lessons to be learned from those cultures where we don't get that many vacation days. We don't get time with our families. We don't have time to eat our lunch. We don't have time to sit and have dinners, and the social aspect and the community aspect, which is a huge part of health that we may not recognize. You could still be eating the healthiest food in the world, but be completely stressed out, eating it while you're on the subway, riding somewhere, and overworking yourself, and that food might not still be benefiting you. So it's really as this whole model of how do you get to the root cause, it's taking into account all those things.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's funny you mentioned eating on the subway. So um, I decided to become a chiropractor at the age of 30. That's why I started chiropractic school. And I was in the business world before then. And I was like constantly in my car, and I would eat in my car
yeah,
lunch almost every day. And even though I was thin, I had all the, I had food allergies up the
yeah,
wazoo. Like it was crazy. I was
yeah.
chronically sick. And in those days, I didn't even know there was a thing called organic food.
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, those add up. And I can remember myself, like, working in the hospital, the place that's supposed to help heal people, and the type of food and time that doctors have off to take care of themselves is like almost zero. And it's like the healthcare profession is one of the most stressful fields, and we expect those people to help take care of people that are sick, or to educate about health. And how can you educate when you barely have time to take care of yourself? And this is, the system, wearing me out, wear everyone out that's in it, trying to figure out another way that's out there that creates wellness and feeling good. And that sends a wave out to other people. If you're doing that, then you send that wave out, and people sense that, oh, something's going on here a little bit differently. What is this person doing differently? And so that's generally how, when people are really looking, they find someone that resonates with them, that it's that you've done some work on yourself and been through it, and know, like, no, I know what not feeling good feels like, so let's try to move away from that point.
And I do think if there's one positive that came out of the pandemic, which I think I can't find any other positives, is that, people really did shift a little bit. They weren't going out. They were spending more time at home with their families, walking, because like the parks were closed, but they could go walk around the block.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of people, they had a big shift as far as, oh, like what's really important? Like,
Uh-huh.
what lifestyle changes do I need to do to get healthier? I think there was a lot of that. I think there's a lot of, being a couch potato, and of course living
Yeah,
in
sure.
fear about, what's around
Yeah.
the corner next. But I do think for a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that even decided, maybe having a two-income family isn't a great idea. Maybe we need to just have a one-income family and just focus more on the family, which of course is, always a great idea, right? If you can do
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the priorities are important. Like what we see when you doing something that's not working, doesn't feel good. It's good to rethink. Is this really supporting us? Is this really type of lifestyle? And so many people moved out of the city. So many people went back to find their local farmers and start to grow their own food. Like I remember at some point, maybe a year ago, going into like one of those gardening stores, and like things are sold out. Like, what are people doing? All the shovels are sold out, all the seeds, and like this is a real thing. That's good. It's a movement here, and that not everywhere, but the demand. Those stores weren't set up for that type of demand. They're like, oh, hold on a second. So that's a resetting of priorities, and people starting to sense that things need to be done differently.
Yeah, speaking of soil, I mean, I just went to go buy some soil last week.
Yeah.
Not only were they sold out, they have no idea when they're getting more in. And I'm like, wait a minute, I
Oh,
got to plant in my garden, you know?
yeah.
And in fact, our garden, we went from one small garden, like 2 by 4 feet.
Mm,
Last summer, we built a whole nother garden that was
awesome.
huge. And
Yeah.
this year we expanded it, and our neighbor across the street's going to let us plant in hers too. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, there's some good stuff. But so, I want to make sure everybody knows this podcast, this interview does not replace your, getting information from a medical provider. This is our
Right.
disclaimer, even though we're both doctors. Dr. Michael is a medical professional. I am a chiropractor. But if you want more specific advice, of course, it's great to reach out to us. So one of the things, I wanted to talk about was, why is there this ever increasing rate of, autoimmune disorders? Why are people chronically sick? Obesity is like through the roof, all these heart related issues. Why are we seeing all these chronic diseases, in your opinion? Where do you think it's
Right.
coming from?
Well, I mean, just the statistics are definitely scary, but when you look at them on a chart and these things growing, you have to step back and ask yourself that question: where do you think this is coming from? Because we're supposed to have a good healthcare system. We're supposed to be helping people to be healthy, but it's, by the statistics and the numbers, that's not the case. So, there's a huge, impact of, like we talked about, the sort of um, toxins in our system, whether that's from the quality of food that you get, the pollutants, the air quality, the water quality, that plays a role. But overall, I think just we as a culture kind of lost touch with getting to know health feels like and where that comes from. That's really based in the lifestyles that we have. And as we were alluding to, is it feels like, we never got that sort of manual to our bodies. Just like you get a car and you look at like how to maintain the car, and it tells you all the steps. That's how I think about it. Is that, oh, change the oil this many miles. Oh, it needs this, needs that, needs the tire rotation. For our bodies, we just forget about it until it runs flat and tires out, and then we go to ask someone for advice. So along those lines, like the chronic disease is skyrocketing. Just the lack of information or knowledge, which is expanding now, about how diet influences your life. What, not just the foods you eat, but where they come from, what sort of chemicals or pesticides are on those. And that's the food industry, the chemical industry, all these pharmaceutical industry go hand in hand to promote products that people don't necessarily need. And so what's the difference is knowing what goes into your body, what you're surrounding in. And then to me, that makes a difference. The one is the exposures that we have on a day-to-day life, combined with the lack of understanding of how to maintain our health, because we're supposed to be resilient as humans. We're supposed to be able to manage stressors. When something comes around, we're able to fight it off. When that's creating resilience in our body. And when we're depleted and overstressed and overworked, that those mechanisms get shut off, or put on the back burner, while our body's in the fight or flight and to try to detox and try to survive mode. And that promotes, in the long run, that we're not talking about 1 month, 2 months. That's like months and months of chronic stress and inflammation on the body, where then we have these disease processes go off.
Yeah, and just like the food, like you and I would probably ascribe to food as medicine, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if we've been eating poorly our entire lives, if we shift our diet, the changes that people will see will be amazing. But yeah, going to organic.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is like for a year, I've been eating organic since 1990. And
Okay.
back in those days, it was pretty hard to find
Of course.
organic food.
Yeah.
So I did whenever I could, but like I remember after I graduated chiropractic school in 93, it was like 94. I remember going to visit my family back in Philly, and I would demand organic food. And it would always be, well, why do you want to pay extra for that? I'm like, well, you can either pay now for the organic food or you can pay later in sickness. And they just thought I was like,
Yeah.
like
Crazy.
right for, an asylum. Like she doesn't know what she's talking about. She must be crazy.
Mm,
And now they all eat organic. It's kind of funny, but
right.
like I remember when, trans fats, right? Like I remember telling my mom, oh, you guys stop, using margarine, right?
Right.
She's so worried about heart disease like her whole life that she used margarine.
Right.
And I'm like, no, really, butter's better for you. So, unfortunately, the messages that we get from the government, right? Today eggs are good for you, but 5 years ago they're really bad for you and they're going to clog up your arteries. So part of that is the information that's coming down from, people that don't really understand health.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a fact that food is an industry and there's profit to be made, and so that's at a consequence of affecting people's health, because those things take advantage. The marketing, the packaging, the way things are sold, take advantage. And that, even you mentioned organic. I don't know what you think about it these days. Even questioning when things something says organic, how do you know, where that comes from? I don't know. Have you, how do you feel about when you see products that you're like, how do I know if this is organic or not?
Well, I try to buy as much as I can from the local,
Right.
local store. So, I mean, at least I know that they're buying, their produce locally. But yeah, and then, what if they are shipping in, like some like, I don't want to say the name because I don't want to get sued, but this big chain of organic stores, they're shipping in stuff from,
Yeah.
Venezuela, right? How do you know it's like even has any nutrients in it by the time it gets to you?
Right. Yeah, that's another thing to look at when we talk about food, is the country of origin. And then, if, of course, always buying local, and then just as local as possible gives a little bit of better sense, you think about. But yeah, you have to really watch now, because that's still part of the industry, is now organic is the thing to do. So let's increase the price of this product and call it organic, and maybe somehow it got certified somewhere along the way, but still may not be, you know, as healthy as you think. So yeah, like you said, just getting back to buying as local as possible, and if you know where the food comes from, it's way better to feel like, okay, I can trust this source. But food, food is like you said, food is medicine, because think about the thing that you do most parts of your day. So I try to say, like, the aspects that affect your life the most, if you can intervene on that, you're going to have a result equivalent. So food, how many meals a day do you eat, how much things you put in your body a day, if you start shifting those around, then you start shifting around the response that your body has. So even like when I look at other diseases, sometimes I don't know what is going on with somebody. Listen, I know you don't feel good. This couple patterns you have here, let's just focus on trying to eat better, get different sources of food, and the body starts to help take care of itself. It's given the right fuel.
Yeah.
Um,
And we know that inflammation is, one of the major keys of, inflammation and stress, right? They're considered
but
the two big things when it comes to
but
any chronic health condition. And, a lot of people feel like, well, I'm going to eat gluten-free. So they buy these packaged gluten-free things that are filled with sugar,
right,
which
yeah,
is a major cause of inflammation.
yeah,
So,
more processed, yeah,
the idea is you go to Whole Foods, and Whole Foods mean eating whole foods, not going to
yeah,
the store Whole Foods. But the idea is that, you know, it's very possible that people with chronic health problems, if they could just change their diet, stick with whole foods,
right.
stop snacking in between meals, going organic, walking a little bit, how many of those problems could either be improved or resolved just by making those changes?
Of course. Yeah, and you look at small little things to do, they add up over time. And we the general I look at general direction, which way you're moving with your health. Is it towards where you want to be? That's great, just keep moving there. Sometimes you make little steps, sometimes you make leaps. But if it feels like we're going one step forward, two steps back, then it's time to add a little bit more in. And I know we were talking about stress earlier. I mean, I know as a chiropractor, you see a lot of people and you work a lot with the nervous system. How do you approach that with people? What's your general take when you see that's a huge part of what's bringing somebody their complaints to you?
Well, if you think about it, when you go into fight or flight, right? Our body is shifting blood supply to the heart and the lungs and the brain, because that's what we need when we're, to survive, right? We don't have to think about, making babies or going to the bathroom. We're just trying to survive. when we go out of fight or flight, our body's supposed to just return back to normal, make sure that all of our organs are getting the proper blood supply. But over time, what happens is, if you're in chronic fight or flight, number one is a lot of these organs are not getting the right blood supply because, the body's shifting this blood. We just don't magically make more blood, right?
Yeah.
So it's just shifting the blood supply to these areas. And it's just that constant stress is affecting how those organs are working, even lung issues. Give you a great example. I had someone come to me. They brought their child who's had these chronic issues with his lungs. He lays down on the table, and for one thing, one side of his rib cage was higher than the other, but he had this short, shallow breathing, right? I mean, he was lying there for like 10 minutes. His breathing didn't change. So I
Yeah.
pointed out to the mom, I'm like, your son's in fight or flight. The adjustment I do focuses on the parasympathetics, getting them out of fight or flight. And within 30 seconds to a minute, you could see the slow breathing, and you could see his low back rising because his belly was filling and his lungs were filling up properly. So even
Right.
chronic lung issues, even though we're sending more blood to that area, it just gets, I don't want to say worn down, but it gets stressed over time. And even, any part of the body can get affected by stress. So like for me, I focus on, like when someone first comes in, my history includes, when did the problem begin, right? I think that, there's a few questions as doctors we're trained to ask, but it's a good thing for, everybody to understand that when we're trying to help somebody, we're going to ask, when did the problem begin? Because that one question I have found to be incredibly, giving me a lot of foresight into why, what the cause is. If someone's been having back pain, I'll just use back pain as an easy answer. And oh, well, it happened 3 years ago. Well, what happened 3 years ago in a day or a month?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was lifting this thing, or I was in this car accident. So there's a direct cause and effect, right? So we could definitely say that that problem was related to car accident. But even many, many years ago, I had someone come into me with IBS. He's an adult male. And my first question was, oh, how long have you had IBS? Well, 15 years ago it started. I'm like, oh, was there anything significant that happened in your life? Oh, yeah, my father left us, like left
Yeah.
the family.
Mhm.
So it was clear that that was still an issue that was, he was holding on to. So, I had suggested he get some counseling, but I was also able to adjust the spine that's connected to the bowel, right? If you look at autonomic nervous system chart, you can see the relationship. So, again, like with anything, stress, there could be, is the stressor
Yeah.
that, too many medications. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into stress. But you can sometimes identify a few of those things
Right.
by just saying, oh, when did the problem begin?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, those, when you talk about, we're saying trying to find the root cause is sometimes in our brain we do those, we protect ourselves. So as individuals, when we have traumatic events, we kind of block off those things and think that they're separate from, that was one thing now, but now this is different. But you do the same thing as I do. It's like, what else is going on in your life when the problem started? And not even if it's something simple like my knee hurts, okay, and now it's hurting for 5 years. Well, what else? What happened? Well, this and that. I got a divorce, or you find something that is like a stressful event, and usually those patterns get set up in the body, and they never get resolved. So then they act out as pain or an autoimmune. I can't tell you how many times for autoimmune, I really look at traumas, physical, mental, emotional, some type of trauma that happens that sets up a nervous system response, and then it sets up an immune response, and then that's where things go a little haywire. So really just trying to identify because if you can help identify, like what you were saying, you can help identify this, it may be related to this event, which equals a stressful event. So what do we know about stress, how it affects the body? Yes. And then the treatment becomes not like we have to heal all of our past problems, but how do you deal with stress? How do you help your body become more resilient from stress? You need to get more into the parasympathetics. How do you do that? How do you, get your body in the relaxation mode? And there are a ton of ways that we do that. And we know that that's the healing state for a lot of people. But the loop, just like the child you mentioned, you get in this loop, and then it wears the body out, and then the body's not able to maintain and heal itself or maintain balance, because we're supposed to have both nervous system, not just one or the
Right.
other. It's definitely interesting when you ask those questions and see what comes up about what else is going on in your life when this problem started. So
And the other thing, I'm sure you find this too, is that someone could come in with 5 or 6 different health issues. And then when you start to dig, you realize that they're actually all interconnected,
of
right?
course, yeah,
If someone has, if someone is in this chronic fight or flight state, they will probably have difficulty sleeping. They'll probably have difficulty with focus because their brain, they can't shut it off. It's just constantly going, going, going. If they're in chronic fight or flight, they're pumping out the adrenaline, right? All these issues that
yeah,
are really linked together. And then it just comes down to, okay, what's the common denominator here? Like, let's start with something simple
yeah,
rather than trying to treat all these different problems at once. And I'll, talking to you today, right? I brought my daughter in to see Dr. B today, and it was just great because, I've seen her health issues change over the years. So I'm not detached the way you are, right? And the way you were just pulling all that stuff together, it was fantastic because, that's the reason why we as healthcare practitioners are supposed to take our family somewhere else because
yeah,
A, we have a bias,
yeah.
two, we've seen the development, but we can't be objective.
It's hard to be objective, yeah. Because we're really attached to our family members and we want the best thing for them, and we've been involved in their life. So yeah, I appreciate that. It's definitely, important to get a fresh set of eyes on people, and especially, when we talk about trying to understand the intricacies of how we're feeling in our body, and, the amazing things that it can do, that really, getting a perspective, and even me in like general family medicine, I like that rule, I like that idea, because I see what all the specialists are doing, and they're missing the point about, someone's seeing a neurologist, a cardiologist, a gastroenterologist, and those could all come from one problem. And then people say, so and so tell me this, so and so tell me that, da, da, da. And it's like people get wiped out by it, and nobody feels good. And of course, they get the ring around, and then you feel like you don't ever get a good answer about your health. And I think that we need more people doing what we're doing, just really talking to people. And when you talk about getting the root cause, it's not something that happens in a minute. Sometimes, if the more you do things, you can clue in, okay, I know where this person's going, but we'll still spend an hour to get there because it feels good to do that. But it's not something that is always easy and quick, fast and easy, quick fix. And that's what the healthcare system's set up for. I'll do this surgery and you'll fix with your, as a chiropractor, I'm sure you see all these times that people say just doing a surgery is going to fix your back.
Right.
How, it's very rare that it really fixes a lot of things. People might get relief temporarily, and then things come back, or something else, pops out of balance, out of line. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're in right now.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about you being a general practitioner, and a family doctor, right? So sometimes there's relationships, even, a connection between family members and how they're relating, and you get to see the
Yeah.
whole family. But I mean, that was one thing that I was very embedded in the medical model until I started getting chiropractic care myself. And, how many specialists did I go to, that for one thing didn't connect the dots because they didn't know about these other issues that you go in for shoulder problem, that's it. They're looking at your
Right.
shoulder. They're
Yep.
not looking at even like emotional issues that could be connected
Uh-huh.
to the shoulder, right?
Yep.
So, that's one of the reasons why for me, when I first met you, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 months ago, it was so great to talk to someone in the medical profession who just got it, like really got this bigger picture and to see the person as a whole rather than just their parts.
Yeah, that, of course, that to me is more the interest of trying to get involved to help people, and being curious because, yeah, you got to ask the questions, and sometimes you have to be upfront with people and be curious about what you're going to find. And that's within like education and learning on the behalf of me as a physician to say, like, what else is out there? What else can help people? And then also asking people questions. I know this is a sensitive topic, but has something like this come up? Have you had these type of stress in your life? What's your relationships like with your partner, with your parents? Do you have siblings? And when I think we forget that we're such complex people in a sense that we're not just molecules floating around, and the it's been proven over and over that the mind and the mind affects the body in a great sense that we tend to overlook. And so when it comes to some of these root cause of diseases, there is almost always a component of a mind, body, spirit, emotional component that we, sometimes are a little bit dancing around the topic that, oh, if only, your job, creates a lot of stress, you don't get along with your boss or your coworkers or something. And, we say like, in order for us to help your gut, your job has to be something else, or in order. And so sometimes people don't want to hear that. Sometimes you take like little baby steps, but ultimately, if you want to get to those like deeper root causes, and the way I kind of say it is like, if you ever go on a vacation or if you ever go, somewhere else, how do you feel? And then when you go back to a situation, does that change? And then we know that our sometimes our problems are environmental or who we're around or the stressors we're around. And so,
Well, the problem with that question is that, I hear people say, oh, someone recently said something about, well, do you notice when you travel to Europe that, you know, you feel good? Um, you're feeling good while you're in Europe, but yet you come home and I'm like, yeah, the vacation and de-stressing is part of it, but
yeah.
it's more than that. The fact is, they don't have GMOs. So that's why you can eat pizza and pasta when you go
Well,
there,
yeah,
but you can't
there's
eat it here.
there's other effects that are happening, of course, the whole environmental, and that's, I've been through journeys with people where the healing part actually comes from moving to one place to another. And that, isn't sometimes that's people aren't on board with that. Sometimes people are like, you need, I've it was in some trainings and I've seen how other people, actually grow and flourish if they, whatever, one side of the country to the other, or from the mountains to the ocean, or from one country to another. And those things are because sometimes we're not following our inner, guide of where we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to be doing, and then all that sort of builds up inside of us. And yeah, the way how do we say, treat somebody I've been seeing be like, listen, we'll be able to help you to manage this problem, but you want to get rid of this problem altogether, try going, you need to live by the ocean. Like,
Right.
what? Or you need to be in like, imagine yourself where the best place you can be, and then what's stopping you from being there. And that's, it's not easy. I don't think sometimes it is like tough for sure, and it's disrupting our life, but sometimes we're guided to be somewhere that we just don't want to listen, and that
Yeah,
creates.
and if you think about it, like, you mentioned about how powerful the mind is. We know that the placebo effect, I think, is about 33% of people get better when they're given a placebo.
Yep.
Obviously, those people are tapping into their,
Yeah.
connection of the mind and body,
Yeah.
right? They're able to focus that healing. They may not realize that they're doing it. They may think it's that little pill that
Mhm.
they've gotten, but that's,
Right.
33% is significant if you think about how many people are actually helped by whatever drug that they're given,
Yeah,
you know?
sure. How much a percent of that is the actual biochemical drug or versus their belief that the pill's going to help them? And that's always the case. It's hard to discern between those type of studies. But man, our mind and our beliefs are really powerful. And if you can channel that, then that's where some of that healing comes from. And some of those patterns that we have in those belief structures are some of the root cause of our illness. Like, I can't help myself. I'm, this sort of negativity thinking. So
Yeah.
this is where multifactorial problems are always multifactorial, unless it's like I cut my hand with a knife. Yeah, okay, the problem is the knife cut your hand. Well, what
Right.
else is going on? But when these chronic problems that are sort of nebulous, or people go from practitioner to practitioner, we really have to step back and look at what's driving all this, and it's sometimes things that people wouldn't think of like you know what they built around themselves, their environment, the toxins, the food, our traumas. That's what I look at, the history that the person has, each person brings to the table. So those are where it really is about being curious.
Yeah. Well, I think our time is up. So,
Hey,
for anybody listening, I want to let you know that we're going to be, go into specific issues and dissecting them a little bit. This is the first of many conversations we're going to have about root cause and, helping people learn about things that they can be doing for themselves, as well as working with people that can help guide you and not just be treating the symptom all the time, but really getting to the root cause, because that's what it's about.
of course. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So any other questions?
I think it's just you and me. So I'm going to stop the recording.